The sky above New York City turned an unusual shade of orange as a massive alien spacecraft descended through the atmosphere. It moved slowly, almost gracefully, like a bird testing the air currents for the first time. People stopped what they were doing. Drivers pulled over on busy streets, tourists froze mid-step in Times Square, and office workers pressed their faces against skyscraper windows. The ship was enormous, its metallic surface shimmering faintly under the afternoon sun. No one knew why it had come or what it wanted, but everyone could feel the weight of its presence. Dr. Emily Carter stood on the rooftop of a nearby building, her binoculars trained on the ship. She was part of a small team of scientists hastily assembled by the government to monitor the situation. Her heart raced as she watched the vessel hover silently above the city. This wasn't just any UFO sighting. This was real, undeniable proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. Beside her, Colonel Ryan Hayes spoke into a radio, coordinating with military units stationed around Manhattan. His voice was calm, but his knuckles were white from gripping the railing too tightly. "They're not responding to our signals," he said, glancing at Emily. "No radio transmissions, no visual cues, nothing." Emily lowered her binoculars and sighed. "Maybe they don't use the same technology we do," she suggested. "Or maybe they're waiting for us to make the first move." Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "Well, if they are, then it's up to us to figure out how to talk to them." As they debated their next steps, the ship began to change. A soft hum filled the air, growing louder until it vibrated in people's chests. Then, with a sudden burst of light, the bottom of the craft opened like a flower blooming in reverse. A group of figures emerged, floating down toward the ground on beams of light. They were tall, slender beings with smooth, iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors depending on the angle. Their eyes were large and dark, giving them an otherworldly appearance. They wore sleek uniforms adorned with strange symbols, each one glowing faintly. The crowd below erupted into chaos. Some people cheered, others screamed, and a few even ran away. Cameras flashed and phones recorded every second of the historic moment, but the aliens paid no attention to the commotion. Instead, they moved stiffly, as though struggling to stay upright. One of them stumbled and fell to one knee, clutching its side. Another leaned heavily against a lamppost, clearly in distress. "What's wrong with them?" Hayes asked, squinting through his binoculars. I think it's the gravity," Emily replied, her mind racing. "Earth's gravity is stronger than what they're used to. Their bodies aren't built for it." Hayes frowned. "You mean they can't handle being here?" "It looks that way," Emily said. "If that's true, then we need to help them before things get worse." Before they could act, a loud crack echoed through the square. A device strapped to one of the aliens' belts malfunctioned, sparking violently before shooting a beam of energy into the crowd. Panic spread as people scattered, trying to avoid the strange weapon. In the confusion, a young man named Jake Miller tripped and fell directly into the path of the beam. He cried out in pain as it grazed his arm, leaving a burn mark that sizzled ominously. "Someone call an ambulance," someone shouted. The incident only deepened the tension between humans and aliens. While some bystanders rushed to help Jake, others shouted angrily at the visitors, accusing them of aggression. The aliens, meanwhile, looked confused and overwhelmed, unable to understand the human reaction. One of them raised a hand in what appeared to be a gesture of peace, but the crowd didn't respond well. Rocks and bottles flew through the air, forcing the aliens to retreat back toward their ship. Watching the scene unfold, Emily felt a mix of frustration and determination. She knew that fear and misunderstanding could escalate quickly, especially in situations like this. Turning to Hayes, she said firmly, "We have to step in now. If we don't, this could turn into something much worse." Hayes hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but you're going out there, not me. You're the expert after all." Emily took a deep breath and stepped forward, raising her hands to show she meant no harm. "Wait!" she called out, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Please stop, we're here to help." The crowd quieted slightly, curious about what she would do next. The aliens turned their heads toward her, their movements slow and deliberate. One of them, A female with shimmering blue markings on her face stepped forward cautiously. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her wide eyes. "My name is Dr. Emily Carter." Emily continued, keeping her tone calm and measured. "I'm a scientist, and I want to understand why you've come here. Can we talk?" For a long moment, no one moved. Then, the alien woman tilted her head slightly, studying Emily as though trying to gauge her intentions. Finally, she spoke, her voice melodic yet unfamiliar. Though the words were incomprehensible, the meaning behind them was clear, caution mixed with a hint of hope. Behind Emily, Hayes muttered, "Do you have any idea what she just said?" "No," Emily admitted, "but I think she wants to trust us." With that, she extended her hand, palm open, in a universal sign of friendship. The alien hesitated, then mirrored the gesture, her fingers brushing lightly against Emily's. The touch sent a jolt through both of them, not painful, but electric, as though two worlds had finally connected. From that moment on, everything changed. The aliens allowed themselves to be led to a safer location, where they could recover from the effects of Earth's gravity. Meanwhile, Emily and her team worked tirelessly to establish communication, using gestures, drawings, and even music to bridge the gap between species. It was slow, frustrating work, but progress was made. Among the aliens was a young cadet named Kale, who couldn't resist sneaking away from the group to explore the city. He wandered through empty alleys and bustling streets, marveling at the sights and sounds of Earth. Everything was so different from his homeworld, noisy, chaotic, and endlessly fascinating, but it was also dangerous. When a group of angry protesters cornered him, demanding answers about the earlier attack, Kale found himself facing hostility he hadn't expected. Just when things seemed hopeless, a woman stepped in to save him. Her name was Lisa Monroe, a journalist who had been following the story since the ship's arrival. With quick thinking and sharp words, she diffused the situation and escorted Kale back to safety. As they walked together, Kale realized that there was more to these humans than he'd been taught. They weren't just primitive creatures. They were complex, emotional, and surprisingly brave. By the end of the day, both sides had taken tentative steps toward understanding each other. The aliens learned that Earth was far more challenging than they had anticipated, while humans discovered that the visitors weren't invincible. Both groups faced obstacles neither had foreseen, setting the stage for a journey that would test their limits and redefine their perceptions of the universe. And so, the story of how Earth's gravity pushed the alien academy to its boundaries began. A tale of conflict, cooperation, and the unyielding spirit of discovery that binds all living beings, no matter how different they may seem. The days that followed the aliens' arrival were tense and uncertain. The visitors had set up temporary quarters in Central Park, creating shimmering domes made of some kind of advanced material that shielded them from Earth's harsh environment. Inside the domes, they worked tirelessly to repair their damaged equipment and adapt to the planet's gravity. Outside, humans gathered in growing numbers, watching curiously, but keeping their distance. Some people brought signs, some welcoming, others hostile, while news helicopters circled overhead, capturing every detail for the world to see. Dr. Emily Carter and her team spent most of their time working with the aliens, trying to establish communication and find ways to help them cope with Earth's conditions. Progress was slow. The aliens spoke in a language unlike anything humans had ever heard, and their gestures often carried meanings that were hard to interpret. But Emily refused to give up. She believed that understanding was possible if both sides were willing to try. Colonel Ryan Hayes, on the other hand, was more skeptical. He paced back and forth outside the alien encampment, his eyes scanning the crowd of onlookers. "We're walking a fine line here," he muttered to one of his officers. "One wrong move and this whole thing could blow up in our faces." Inside the dome, Kale, a young alien cadet, grew increasingly restless. He was supposed to be learning about diplomacy and interstellar cooperation during this mission, but instead, he felt trapped. The heavy pull of Earth's gravity made even simple movements exhausting, and the constant scrutiny from humans left him feeling exposed. Worst of all, His mentor, Vera, kept reminding him to stay focused and avoid unnecessary risks. "You're here to learn, not to cause trouble," Vera said sternly one evening as Kale fidgeted with a piece of alien tech. "Remember why we came to this planet?" Kale rolled his eyes. "To observe primitive life forms? So far, they don't seem so primitive to me." Vera crossed her arms. "Your arrogance will get you into trouble. These humans may lack our technology, but they are resourceful and unpredictable. You'd do well to remember that." But Kale wasn't listening. Later that night, when everyone else was asleep, he slipped out of the dome and into the dark streets of New York City. The cool night air felt refreshing after days spent cooped up inside. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he felt free. He wandered aimlessly at first, marveling at the lights and sounds of the city. Everything seemed so alive compared to the sterile environments he was used to back home. Street performers played music on corners, couples strolled hand and food vendors called out to passers-by. It was chaotic, messy, and utterly fascinating. Eventually, Kale found himself near an alley where a woman sat typing furiously on a laptop. She looked up briefly, noticed him, and froze. Her name was Lisa Monroe, and she recognized him immediately, from the earlier incident when she had helped him escape the angry protesters. At first, she seemed unsure whether to approach him or run away, but curiosity won out. "Hey," she said cautiously, closing her laptop. "What are you doing out here?" Kale hesitated. He didn't know how much he could trust her, but something about her calm demeanor put him at ease. "I wanted to see your world," he admitted finally. "It's different." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Different good or different bad?" Kyle thought for a moment. "Both, I think." They talked. For hours, sitting on a bench in the quiet alley, Lisa explained what life was like on Earth. The joys, the struggles, the endless pursuit of progress. Kyle listened intently, asking questions that revealed both his ignorance and his genuine interest. In return, he shared bits and pieces about his own world, a place of towering crystal cities and vast floating gardens, but stopped short of revealing too many details. Trust, after all, was still fragile between them. As dawn approached, Lisa glanced at her watch and sighed. "You should probably get back before someone notices you're gone." Kyle nodded reluctantly. "Thank you for talking to me. Humans, you're not what I expected." Lisa smiled faintly. "Neither are you." Back at the alien encampment, tensions were rising. The malfunction that had injured Jake Miller had been traced back to the ship's anti-gravity generators, which were struggling to compensate for Earth's gravitational pull. Without a solution, the aliens risked permanent damage to their systems, and possibly their health. Vera called an emergency meeting with Emily and her team, hoping to find answers. "We need materials that can stabilize our generators," Vera explained, her tone urgent. "Specifically, rare minerals that emit low-frequency vibrations." Emily frowned. "Do you have any idea where we might find those on Earth?" Vera shook her head. "Not exactly. Our scans suggest they exist in mountainous regions, but we cannot retrieve them ourselves. Your gravity makes travel difficult." Hayes stepped forward, his expression grim. "So you want us to do your dirty work? Send humans into dangerous territory while you sit safely behind your shields?" "It's not about convenience," Vera replied sharply. "It's about survival. If we fail, both our species will suffer the consequences." After some debate, Emily convinced Hayes to agree to the plan. A team would be sent to locate and extract the necessary minerals, but only if the aliens provided detailed coordinates and guaranteed safe transport. It was a risky proposition, but one that offered hope for resolving the crisis. Meanwhile, Kale struggled to keep his nighttime excursions a secret. When Vera confronted him about sneaking out, he tried to defend himself. "I'm learning," he insisted. "You always say we should understand other species. Well, I'm doing that." Vera's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "Learning is important, but so is discipline. If you continue to disobey orders, you'll jeopardize everything we've worked for." Kyle clenched his fists but said nothing. Deep down, he knew she was right, but part of him resented being treated like a child. He wanted to prove that he could handle responsibility, even if it meant bending the rules. The next morning, the human expedition team prepared to leave for the mountains. Emily led the group, which included scientists, engineers, and a few soldiers, for protection. Cale watched from the edge of the encampment, torn between staying behind and joining them. Finally, unable to resist, he approached Emily just as she was about to board the transport vehicle. "I want to come with you," he said bluntly. Emily blinked in surprise. "Are you sure? It's going to be dangerous." "I can help," Cale insisted. "I know more about the minerals than anyone else, and besides—" He hesitated, then added quietly, "I need to do this." After a moment of consideration, Emily nodded. "All right, but you follow my lead, understood?" Kyle smiled faintly. "Understood." As the convoy drove away from the city, Kyle stared out the window, taking in the changing landscape. The skyscrapers gave way to rolling hills and dense forests, and eventually jagged peaks loomed in the distance. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, and despite the danger ahead, he couldn't help but feel excited. Lisa, who had joined the expedition to document the mission, caught him staring. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she asked softly. Kyle nodded. "Yes, strange but beautiful." Their journey was far from smooth. The roads became rougher the closer they got to the mountains, forcing them to abandon the vehicles and continue on foot. The terrain was treacherous, with steep cliffs and narrow paths that tested even the most experienced climbers. Several times Cale stumbled under the weight of Earth's gravity, but Lisa was always there to steady him. "You're stronger than you think," she told him once, offering a reassuring smile. "Just keep moving." By the third day, they reached the area where the minerals were believed to be located. The team set up camp and began searching the surrounding caves, using specialized equipment to detect the faint vibrations emitted by the rocks. It was tedious work, but Cale threw himself into it, determined to contribute. Late one night, as the others rested, Cale stayed awake, examining a sample he had collected earlier. His fingers traced the smooth surface of the mineral, marveling at its unique properties. For the first time, he felt a sense of purpose, a reason to believe that this mission mattered, but their success came at a cost. While exploring a particularly deep cave, part of the ceiling collapsed, trapping 2 members of the team inside. Panic spread quickly, but Cale sprang into action, using his knowledge of alien engineering to stabilize the structure long enough for the others to dig them out. It was a risky maneuver, and he nearly collapsed from exhaustion afterward, but it saved lives. When they finally returned to the alien encampment days later, carrying bags filled with the precious minerals, Cale felt a newfound respect for both the humans and himself. They had faced danger together, overcome obstacles, and achieved something neither side could have done alone. It was proof that cooperation, however difficult, was worth the effort. As the sun rose over Central Park, casting golden light across the domes, Cale realized that this experience had changed him. He no longer saw humans as primitive or inferior. Instead, he saw potential for friendship, for growth, and for a future where 2 very different worlds could coexist. And though challenges still lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. The alien encampment in Central Park buzzed with activity as the team returned from the mountains, their bags heavy with the rare minerals needed to stabilize the anti-gravity generators. Kyle walked alongside Lisa, his body aching from the long journey but his spirit lifted by what they had accomplished. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he felt a sense of pride, not just in himself, but in the humans who had risked their lives to help. Dr. Emily Carter and her team immediately got to work analyzing the minerals. They set up makeshift labs inside the domes using both human and alien technology to process the samples. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. If the minerals worked as expected, the alien systems could be stabilized, allowing them to repair their ship and continue their mission. Vera watched silently from the corner of the lab, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. She had been furious when she learned that Cale had joined the expedition without permission, but seeing him now, exhausted yet determined, She couldn't deny the value of his contribution. Still, she made a mental note to address his disobedience. Later. It's going to take time, Emily said, breaking the silence. We need to test these minerals thoroughly before we integrate them into your systems. Vera nodded. Time is something we have little of. Our generators are failing, faster than anticipated. Kyle stepped forward, his voice hesitant. What happens if we can't stabilize them? Vera turned to him, her eyes sharp. Then our ship collapses under Earth's gravity, and we may not survive the fall. The weight of her words hung in the air, sobering everyone in the room. Despite the progress they had made, the stakes were higher than ever. Failure wasn't an option. While the scientists worked, tensions simmered among the aliens. Not all of them shared Vera's willingness to cooperate with humans. One such dissenter was Zynar, a senior cadet who viewed humanity with disdain. He believed that relying on primitive beings for help was beneath them, and argued that they should abandon the mission altogether. They're delaying us, Zynar said during a heated meeting with other crew members. Every moment we spend here weakens us further. We should leave now while we still can. And go where? Kyle shot back, unable to stay silent. Our ship won't make it out of Earth's atmosphere in its current state. Without these minerals, we're stranded. Zynar sneered. Stranded? Or forced to grovel at the feet of creatures who don't even understand basic physics? Kale clenched his fists, anger bubbling inside him. You're wrong about them. Humans aren't. Primitive, they're resilient. They've survived challenges you can't even imagine. Enough, Vera interrupted, her voice cutting through the argument like a blade. This is not the time for division. We must focus on repairing our systems, or none of us will leave this planet alive. Though the meeting ended, Zynar's resentment lingered. He began whispering to others, spreading doubt about the alliance with humans. His words found traction among some of the younger cadets who feared failure and resented being forced to rely on outsiders. Outside the domes, the human population remained divided. While many supported the collaboration, others grew increasingly hostile. Protesters gathered near the edges of Central Park holding signs that read, "Leave Earth alone and no aliens welcome." Among them was Marcus Cole, a militant leader who saw the visitors as a threat to humanity's survival. "They're dangerous," Marcus shouted to the crowd, his voice amplified by a megaphone. "They've already hurt one of us. How long, before they try something worse?" His words stirred anger and fear, drawing more people to his cause. Some threw rocks at the domes, though the material was too strong to break. Others called for military intervention, demanding that the government step in and remove the aliens by force. Colonel Ryan Hayes monitored the situation closely, his frustration mounting. "If this keeps up, we'll have a riot on our hands," he told Emily one evening. "And I don't know how much longer we can keep the peace." Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. "We need to show people that working together is the only way forward. But how do we convince them when so many are scared?" Before Hayes could respond, an alarm blared from inside the domes. Everyone rushed to see what had happened. Inside the lab, one of the anti-gravity generators had malfunctioned again, sending sparks flying across the room. The ground shook violently, causing several pieces of equipment to topple over. "We lost power to the shielding," someone shouted. Without the protective barrier, the domes began to weaken. Cracks formed in the shimmering material, letting in gusts of wind and rain. The aliens scrambled to fix the problem, but their movements were sluggish due to Earth's gravity. Panic spread quickly among them. Lisa, who had been observing from outside, ran toward the commotion. "What's happening?" she asked, pushing past the crowd. "The generator failed," Cale replied, his voice tight with worry. "If we don't restore power soon, the entire dome will collapse." Lisa looked around, her mind racing. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Cale hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close. We might need extra hands." Together they worked alongside the scientists and engineers, trying to stabilize the system. It was chaotic and exhausting, but slowly, they managed to bring the generator back online. The cracks in the dome sealed themselves, restoring the protective barrier just in time. As the crisis subsided, Kyle caught sight of Zynar slipping away from the group. Suspicious, he followed him discreetly. He discovered Zynar tampering with another piece of equipment, deliberately damaging it to sabotage the repairs. "What are you doing?" Kyle demanded, stepping forward. Zynar froze, then turned to face him, his expression cold. "Protecting our future. These humans are holding us back. If we want to survive, we need to leave them behind." "You're making things worse," Kale snapped. "Your actions could get us all killed." Before Zynar could respond, Vera appeared, having been alerted by another crew member. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. "Explain yourself." "Zynar." For a moment, Zynar looked defiant. Then, realizing he was caught, he lowered his head. "I was trying to protect us," he muttered. "Humans can't be trusted." Vera's voice was icy. "Your distrust has endangered everyone. From now on, you will remain under supervision, is that clear?" Zynar said nothing, but the look in his eyes promised further trouble. That night, Kyle sat alone outside the domes, staring up at the stars. Lisa joined him after a while, sitting quietly beside him. Neither spoke for a long time, each lost in their thoughts. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. "Do you think we can really pull this off? Fix everything, I mean." Kyle glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know, but I do know that giving up isn't an option. Not for us, and not for them." Lisa smiled faintly. "You've changed, you know. You didn't used to believe in humans." Kyle chuckled softly. "Maybe I didn't, but maybe I was wrong." As they sat there watching the sky, Kale realized how far he'd come since landing on Earth. What had started as a mission of observation had become something much deeper, a lesson in humility, cooperation, and trust. The road ahead would still be difficult, but for the first time, he felt hopeful. Inside the domes, the repairs continued late into the night. Scientists and engineers worked side by side, united by a common goal. Outside, the protests grew louder, fueled by fear and misinformation. But amidst the chaos, small acts of kindness and understanding began to emerge, moments that reminded everyone involved of what was truly at stake. Earth's gravity had pushed the alien academy to its limits, testing their resolve and challenging their beliefs. Yet in the face of adversity, both humans and aliens had shown glimpses of strength and resilience. Whether they could overcome their differences and find a way forward remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. The journey had only just begun. The repairs inside the alien domes were progressing, but tensions outside continued to rise. The protests grew louder and more aggressive, with Marcus Cole leading the charge. His fiery speeches drew larger crowds each day, and his followers became increasingly bold. They threw rocks at the domes, chanted angry slogans, and even attempted to block supply trucks from reaching the encampment. Colonel Ryan Hayes and his team struggled to maintain order, but their efforts only seemed to fuel the protesters' anger. Inside the domes, Kyle watched the chaos unfold through the translucent walls. He felt a mix of frustration and guilt. Frustration because the humans' hostility was making their mission harder, and guilt because he knew some of it stemmed from misunderstandings. Misunderstandings he had once shared. He glanced at Lisa, who was helping Dr. Emily Carter organize tools for the next phase of repairs. She looked tired but determined, her hands moving quickly despite the stress. "We need to do something," Kyle said suddenly, breaking the silence. Lisa turned to him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "About the protests," Kyle replied. "If we don't address their fears, this could spiral out of control." Lisa frowned. "And what do you suggest? We can't just walk out there and reason with them." "No," Kale admitted, "but maybe I can. Maybe I can show them that we're not their enemies." Before Lisa could respond, Vera approached, her expression stern. "You're not going anywhere near those protesters," she said firmly. "It's too dangerous." Kale crossed his arms. "Dangerous or not, someone has to try. If we keep hiding behind these walls, they'll only see us as invaders." Vera hesitated, her gaze flickering between Kale and the crowd outside. Finally, she sighed. "Fine, but you won't go alone. Take backup, and be careful." Later that evening, Cale stepped out of the dome accompanied by Lisa and two human security officers. The moment they appeared, the crowd erupted into shouts and jeers. Protesters surged forward, shaking their fists and hurling insults. Cale flinched but forced himself to stay calm. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace, his voice steady despite the noise. "I'm here to talk," he said loudly. "Not to fight." For a moment, the crowd quieted, unsure how to react. "Marcus." Cole pushed his way to the front, glaring at Cale. "Talk? What is there to say? You've already shown you don't belong here." Cale met his gaze without flinching. "We came here to learn, not to harm. Yes, mistakes have been made, but we're trying to fix them. Together." Marcus snorted. "Together? You think we're just going to trust you after everything?" "It's not about trust," Lisa interjected, stepping forward. "It's about survival. Their ship is failing because of Earth's gravity. If they can't repair it, they'll die, and so will anyone nearby when it crashes." The crowd murmured uneasily, glancing at one another. Marcus clenched his jaw, unwilling to back down. "That's their problem, not ours." "No," Cale countered. "It's everyone's problem. This isn't just about us. It's about finding a way to coexist. If we succeed, it proves that different species can work together. Isn't that worth fighting for?" His words hung in the air, sparking a debate among the protesters. Some nodded thoughtfully while others shouted objections. Marcus tried to rally them again, but his influence wavered. Sensing an opportunity, Lisa stepped closer to the crowd. "We know you're scared," she said, "but fear doesn't solve anything. Let's focus on solutions instead of conflict. Give us a chance to prove we're on your side." After a tense pause, one man spoke up. "All right, prove it. Show us you're serious." Kyle nodded. "We will." As the crowd dispersed, Marcus lingered, his eyes burning with resentment. He muttered something under his breath before turning away, but Cale didn't miss the look of determination on his face. Whatever Marcus had planned, it wasn't over yet. Back inside the domes, the mood was cautiously optimistic. Cale reported the encounter to Vera, who listened intently. When he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You took a risk today, a necessary one." "It wasn't just me," Kyle said. "Lisa helped. Without her, I wouldn't have known what to say." Vera glanced at Lisa, who stood nearby. "Then perhaps we owe her our gratitude." Lisa shrugged modestly. "I just did what anyone would have done." Despite the small victory, the situation remained precarious. Zynar, still bitter about being caught sabotaging the repairs, continued to stir dissent among the aliens. He whispered doubts to his fellow cadets, questioning whether humanity truly deserved their help. His words found traction with some, creating rifts within the crew. One night, as Cale walked through the domes, he overheard Zynar arguing with another alien. "They'll never accept us," Zynar hissed. "Why should we waste time trying?" "They're helping us survive," the other alien replied. "Isn't that enough?" Zynar sneered. "Survival isn't enough. We need to prioritize our own kind, not theirs." Cale stepped forward, unable to stay silent. "Your attitude is exactly why they distrust us. If we want to earn their respect, we need to give it first." Zynar turned to him, his eyes flashing with anger. "You've gone soft, Cale, spending too much time with these primitives." Before Cale could respond, Vera appeared, her presence commanding immediate attention. "Enough," she said sharply. "This bickering solves nothing. Our priority is repairing the ship, not tearing each other apart." Zynar glared at her but said nothing. As he stormed off, Kyle let out a frustrated sigh. "He's going to cause trouble." "He already has," Vera replied grimly. "But we can't afford distractions. Stay focused." The next morning, disaster struck. While testing the newly repaired anti-gravity generators, a surge of energy caused one of the systems to overload. Sparks flew, and a loud boom echoed through the domes. The ground shook violently, sending equipment toppling and throwing several people off balance. Alarms blared as smoke filled the air. "What happened?" Emily shouted, coughing as she tried to clear the haze. "The generator collapsed," one of the engineers yelled back. It's destabilizing the entire system. Kyle and Lisa rushed to help, working alongside the scientists to contain the damage. They managed to shut down the malfunctioning generator before it caused further harm, but the setback was significant. Hours of work had been undone and morale plummeted. "This is getting worse," Lisa muttered, wiping soot from her face. "Every time we make progress, something goes wrong." "It's not over," Kale said firmly. "We'll figure it out." But the incident gave Zynar ammunition. That evening, he gathered a group of like-minded cadets and confronted Vera. "This alliance is failing," he declared. "We should abandon the mission and find another way home." "And where would we go?" Vera snapped. "Our ship won't last long enough to leave Earth's atmosphere. Then we take what we need and leave the humans to fend for themselves," Zynar retorted. "They've caused nothing but problems." "You're wrong," Kyle interrupted, stepping forward. "Humans aren't the problem, they're the solution. Without their help, we'd be stranded." Zynar scoffed. "You're blinded by sentimentality. Mark my words, Kale, you'll regret trusting them." Before the argument could escalate further, alarms sounded again, this time from outside the domes. Through the walls, they could see flashes of light and hear distant explosions. Panic spread quickly. "What's happening?" someone shouted. Colonel Hayes burst into the dome, his face grim. "Marcus Cole attacked the perimeter. He's stolen one of your weapons." Vera's eyes widened. "Which weapon?" "One of the plasma cannons," Hayes replied. "He's threatening to use it unless you leave Earth immediately." Kale felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly what he had feared. A misunderstanding escalating into violence. Without hesitation, he turned to Vera. "I need to stop him." Vera hesitated, then nodded. "Take backup. Be careful." Outside, the scene was chaotic. Marcus stood near the edge of the park, holding the plasma cannon awkwardly. His followers surrounded him, cheering him on as he aimed the weapon at the domes. Behind them, military units formed a defensive line, weapons drawn, but reluctant to fire. Kyle approached cautiously, his hands raised. "Marcus, listen to me. That weapon isn't safe. You don't know how to use it." Marcus smirked. "Don't patronize me, alien. I know exactly what I'm doing." "No, you don't," Kale said urgently. "If you fire that, you'll destroy everything, including yourself." Marcus hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his face, but his pride refused to let him back down. "Then tell your people to leave. Now." Before Kale could respond, Lisa stepped forward. "Marcus, please think about what you're doing. This isn't the answer." Marcus glared at her. "Stay out of this, Lisa. You've already chosen sides." Lisa shook her head. "I haven't chosen sides. I'm choosing peace. Don't throw that away." For a long moment, no one moved. Then slowly, Marcus lowered the weapon. His followers exchanged nervous glances, unsure what to do next. Seizing the opportunity, Hayes signaled his men to move in and confiscate the cannon. As the tension eased, Kale approached Marcus, his voice soft. "You wanted to protect your world. So do we. Let's find a better way to do that, together." Marcus didn't reply, but the defiance in his eyes softened slightly. For now, the crisis had passed, but the road ahead remained uncertain. Inside the domes, the repairs resumed with renewed urgency. Despite the setbacks, both humans and aliens pressed on, driven by a shared goal. They had faced danger and division, but they had also shown glimpses of hope and resilience. Earth's gravity had tested them all, pushing them to their limits, but it had also revealed their strength. And though challenges still lay ahead, they were determined to overcome them, together. How Earth's gravity pushed the alien academy to its boundaries, Part 5. The aftermath of Marcus Cole's failed attack left both humans and aliens shaken. The stolen plasma cannon had been safely recovered, but the incident exposed the deep divisions within both groups. Trust was fragile, and fear still lingered in the air like a storm cloud refusing to pass. For Kale, the confrontation had been a turning point, a stark reminder of how easily misunderstandings could escalate into violence. Inside the domes, repairs continued with renewed urgency. The anti-gravity generators were functioning again, but only partially. Without full stabilization, the ship remained vulnerable. Every moment spent on Earth carried the risk of further malfunctions or accidents. Vera called another meeting, her expression grave as she addressed the crew. "We are running out of time," she said bluntly. "If we cannot complete the repairs, soon we may have no choice but to abandon the mission entirely." Kyle clenched his fists. "Abandon? After everything we've done?" Vera's gaze softened slightly. "I understand your frustration, Kale, but survival must come first. If staying here endangers both us and the humans, then leaving might be the only option." Before anyone could respond, Zynar spoke up, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Perhaps we should thank the humans for their help before we go. Clearly they've done so much for us." Kale turned to him, anger flashing in his eyes. "You're not helping, Zynar. Your negativity is making things worse. And you're blind. Trust in them is reckless," Zynar shot back. "They'll never see us as equals, Kyle. They'll always see us as invaders." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising until Vera stepped between them. "Enough," she barked. "This infighting solves nothing. We need focus, not division." Her words silenced the room, but the tension remained palpable. As the meeting ended, Kale stormed off, unable to stomach Zynar's cynicism any longer. He found himself outside the domes, pacing back and forth as he tried to calm down. Lisa joined him after a while, her presence offering a small measure of comfort. "You okay?" she asked softly. Kyle shook his head. "No. I don't know what to do anymore. Every step forward feels like 2 steps back." Lisa placed a hand on his shoulder. "That's how progress works sometimes. Messy and frustrating, but worth it in the end." Kyle sighed. "I hope you're right." Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Hayes worked tirelessly to prevent another outbreak of violence. The military had increased its presence around Central Park, creating a buffer zone between the alien encampment and the protesters. Marcus Cole, though humiliated by his failure, refused to give up. He continued to rally supporters, spreading fear and misinformation about the aliens' true intentions. "They're stalling," Marcus told his followers during a late-night meeting. "Buying time to build something dangerous. We can't let them win." His words struck a chord with many, reigniting their hostility. Protesters began gathering again, their numbers swelling with each passing day. Some even brought makeshift weapons, determined to drive the aliens away by force. Hayes monitored the situation closely, his patience wearing thin. "This isn't going to end well," he muttered to Emily one evening. "If they push too hard, someone's going to get hurt." Emily nodded grimly. "We need to find a way to de-escalate. Fast." Back inside the domes, Dr. Carter and her team made a breakthrough. By combining human engineering techniques with alien technology, they developed a prototype stabilizer capable of handling Earth's gravity more effectively. It wasn't perfect, but it offered hope. "This could work," Emily said excitedly, showing the device to Vera. "If we install it in your main generator, it might stabilize the entire system." Vera studied the prototype carefully, her skepticism giving way to cautious optimism. "It's worth a try, but we'll need to act quickly." As preparations began, Kyle noticed Zynar lingering near the equipment, his expression unreadable. Suspicious, Kale kept an eye on him, following discreetly when Zynar slipped away from the group. To Kale's horror, he discovered Zynar tampering with the prototype, deliberately damaging key components. "What are you doing?" Kale demanded, stepping forward. Zynar froze, then turned to face him, his eyes cold. "Ending this farce. If the stabilizer fails, we'll have no choice but to leave." "You're sabotaging our only chance," Kale snapped. "Why would you do that?" "Because staying here is a mistake," Zynar replied harshly. "Humans can't be trusted. They'll betray us the moment it suits them." Before Kale could stop him, Zynar activated the damaged prototype, causing it to spark violently. Alarms blared as smoke filled the area, drawing the attention of nearby crew members. Within moments, Vera arrived, her expression furious. "What have you done?" she demanded, glaring at Zynar. "He's trying to sabotage the mission," Kyle said, quickly. "He doesn't care about fixing the ship, he just wants to leave." Zynar sneered. And what about you, Kale? You've gone native, haven't you? Forgotten where you belong? Vera stepped between them, her voice sharp. Enough. Zynar, you are confined to quarters until further notice. Do you understand? Zynar hesitated, then nodded stiffly. As he walked away, Kale felt a mix of relief and frustration. Though Zynar had been stopped, the damage to the prototype set them back yet again. Despite the setback, the team pressed on. Working through the night, they rebuilt the stabilizer, incorporating additional safeguards to prevent future sabotage. By morning, the device was ready for installation. Everyone gathered around as Emily and her team carefully integrated it into the main generator. It's working, Emily announced after a tense few minutes. The system is stabilizing. Cheers erupted among the humans and aliens alike. For the first time in days, there was a sense of hope. The ship's systems were holding steady, and the domes glowed brighter than ever, their protective barriers stronger and more secure. But outside, tensions reached a boiling point. Marcus Cole, convinced that the aliens were hiding something sinister, led a final assault on the encampment. Armed with crude weapons and sheer determination, his followers breached the perimeter, clashing with military forces in chaotic skirmishes. Smoke filled the air as explosions rocked the park, sending debris flying in all directions. Inside the domes, alarms sounded once more. "We're under attack," Hayes shouted, rushing to organize a defense. Kale grabbed Lisa's arm. "Stay. Here. It's too dangerous." "No," Lisa insisted. "I'm coming with you." Reluctantly, Kale agreed, knowing she wouldn't back down. Together, they joined the others as they prepared to face the attackers. Outside, the scene was chaotic. Protesters swarmed the domes, shouting angrily and throwing objects. Military units struggled to hold them back, but the sheer number of people overwhelmed them. Marcus stood at the forefront, clutching a stolen alien weapon. His eyes burned with desperation as he aimed it at the domes. "Leave now, or I'll destroy you." Kyle stepped forward, his hands raised. "Marcus, please, don't do this." Marcus hesitated, his finger trembling on the trigger. "You don't understand, alien. You'll never understand." "I understand more than you think," Kale replied calmly. "I've seen your world, the good and the bad, and I've learned that fear doesn't solve anything. Violence only breeds more violence." For a long moment, Marcus wavered, uncertainty flickering across his face. Then, with a roar of defiance, he pulled the trigger. A beam of energy shot toward the domes, striking the ground just inches from Kale's feet. Before Marcus could fire again, Hayes tackled him, pinning him to the ground. "Enough!" Hayes barked, wresting the weapon from Marcus's grasp. As the fighting subsided, Kale looked around at the destruction. Smoke hung heavy in the air, and the once beautiful park was littered with debris. But amidst the chaos, he saw something unexpected. Small acts of kindness. Soldiers tending to injured protesters, civilians helping wounded aliens to safety, humanity and compassion breaking through the anger and fear. Lisa touched his arm gently. "See? Even in the worst moments, there's still hope." Kale nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. "Yes, there's always hope." Later that night, as the dust settled, Kyle stood outside the domes, staring up at the stars. Lisa joined him after a while, sitting quietly beside him. Neither spoke for a long time, content to simply share the silence. "What happens now?" Lisa asked finally. Kale shrugged. "We keep moving forward, one step at a time." Lisa smiled, faintly. "Sounds like a plan." Though challenges still lay ahead, both humans and aliens had proven their resilience. Earth's gravity had tested them in ways they never imagined, pushing them to their limits and beyond. But together, they had shown that cooperation, however difficult, was possible. And in that shared struggle, they had found something greater than survival: understanding. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Kale felt certain of one thing: they would face whatever came next, together. The days that followed the attack were quiet but heavy with tension. The alien encampment in Central Park had been damaged, though not critically, and repairs were underway once again. The humans who had fought to defend the aliens worked side by side with them, rebuilding what had been broken. Though trust was still fragile, small acts of kindness began to mend the cracks between the two groups. Kyle spent most of his time helping with the repairs, his movements slower than usual due to exhaustion, but he didn't complain. Every moment he spent working alongside humans reminded him of how much they had in common, how fear and misunderstanding could be overcome with patience and effort. Lisa stayed close to him, offering encouragement, when the weight of everything seemed too much to bear. "You've done so much already," she told him one evening as they sat outside the domes. "Don't forget that." Kyle shook his head. "I haven't done enough. Not yet." Lisa smiled faintly. "You're too hard on yourself. Look around. You've helped bring us this far." Kyle glanced at the scene before him. Humans and aliens worked together seamlessly, their differences fading into the background as they focused on a shared goal. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. For the first time in days, Kyle allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Hayes coordinated efforts to ensure the safety of both groups. Military units patrolled the perimeter of Central Park, keeping protesters at bay while allowing peaceful demonstrations to continue. Marcus Cole, now detained, remained defiant but powerless. His followers, however, began to lose steam, their anger giving way to uncertainty. Dr. Emily Carter and her team finalized the installation of the stabilizer, ensuring the anti-gravity generators were fully functional. The ship's systems hummed steadily, a sign that they were finally ready to leave Earth. But the thought of departure weighed heavily on everyone, aliens and humans alike. Vera called a final meeting with her crew, her expression unreadable. "We have stabilized our systems," she began. "The ship is ready for departure." A murmur rippled through the group. Some looked relieved, others conflicted. Kyle stared at the floor, his heart sinking. He hadn't realized how much he had come to care about Earth and its people. "What happens next?" one of the cadets asked hesitantly. "We return home," Vera replied firmly. "Our mission here is complete." Kyle stepped forward, his voice trembling slightly. "Is it? We came here to learn, Vera, to understand other species. Have we truly done that if we leave now?" Vera studied him for a long moment, her gaze softening. "What are you suggesting, Kale?" "I'm suggesting I want to stay," Kale said, his voice steady despite the nerves twisting in his stomach. "There's still so much to learn here, so much to discover." The room fell silent. Zynar sneered from the corner. "Typical. You've gone soft, just like I said." "Enough, Zynar," Vera snapped. Turning back to Kale, she added, "Staying behind is a significant decision. Are you certain this is what you want?" Kyle nodded. "Yes. I believe staying will help bridge the gap between our worlds. If I go back now, all we've worked for might be forgotten." Vera hesitated, then sighed. "Very well. I will grant your request, but only if the humans agree to host you." Kale turned to Emily and Hayes, who had been observing the exchange. "Would that be possible?" Emily exchanged a glance with Hayes before nodding. "We'd be honored to have you. Kale, your presence could help foster understanding between our species." Hayes grunted in agreement. "Just don't cause any trouble, all right?" Kale smiled faintly. "I'll do my best." As preparations for departure continued, emotions ran high. The aliens packed their belongings, saying goodbye to the humans, who had become friends over the past weeks. Lisa found Kale near the edge of the park, staring up at the stars. "You really mean to stay?" she asked softly. Kale nodded. "I do. I think I can make a difference here, if you'll let me." Lisa chuckled. "Of course we will. You've already made a difference, Kale. More than you realize." They stood in silence for a while, watching as the alien ship prepared for launch. Lights flickered across its surface, casting an ethereal glow over the park. It was beautiful, but also bittersweet. "I'll miss them," Kale admitted quietly. "Me too," Lisa replied. But they'll come back someday, and until then you'll have us. Kyle smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. For the first time, he felt truly at home, not because of the place, but because of the people. On the day of departure, the humans gathered outside the domes to watch the ship ascend. The aliens emerged one last time, bidding farewell to those who had helped them. Vera approached Kale, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Take care of yourself," she said gently, "and remember what you've learned here." "I will," Kale promised. "Thank you for everything." Vera nodded, then turned to Lisa. "Thank you for looking after him. He's stubborn, but he has a good heart." Lisa grinned. "I'll keep an eye on him." With that, Vera joined the others as they boarded the ship. Moments later, the vessel lifted off the ground, its engines humming softly. The crowd watched in awe as it rose higher and higher, disappearing into the clouds. A cheer went up among the humans, celebrating the end of an era and the beginning of something new. In the days that followed, Kale settled into life on Earth. He moved into a small apartment near Lisa, who introduced him to the wonders of human culture. From pizza to music festivals, Kale embraced every experience with wide-eyed curiosity. In return, he shared stories of his homeworld, teaching Lisa and others about the stars and galaxies beyond their reach. The Alien Academy left behind valuable knowledge, sharing advancements in medicine, energy, and technology with humanity. In return, they took with them a deeper understanding of compassion, resilience, and the power of cooperation. Both species had grown stronger through the challenges they faced together. One evening, as Kale and Lisa walked through Central Park, they stopped beneath the spot where the alien domes had once stood. The grass had begun to grow back, erasing the scars of conflict. Above them, the sky stretched endlessly, dotted with countless stars. "What do you think they're doing right now?" Lisa asked, tilting her head toward the heavens. Kyle shrugged. "Probably telling stories about us, about Earth," Lisa laughed. "Good ones, I hope." Kyle smiled, gazing up at the stars. "Definitely good ones." Though the aliens were gone, their impact lingered. Humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, earning the respect of beings from another world. And Kale, standing on the threshold of two civilizations, knew he was exactly where he belonged. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had brought two very different worlds closer together. Earth's gravity had pushed the Alien Academy to its boundaries, but in doing so, it had also revealed the strength and potential of both species. Together, they had forged a bond that would endure, a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, connection was always possible. As the city lights twinkled around them, Kale and Lisa stood side by side, watching the stars. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing for certain. The story of Earth and its visitors was far from over. And perhaps, in some distant corner of the galaxy, the aliens were looking back at the same stars, thinking of the blue planet that had changed them forever.